Good day. We are from Group 5 and in this video presentation, we will discuss the sulfur cycle in its unaltered form, state the major sources and effects of increased sulfur amount in its altered cycle, and provide some interventions that we can do as students to address its issues. We will first discuss the unaltered sulfur cycle. To define, biogeochemical cycle pertains to any of the natural pathways on Earth by which essential elements of living matter circulate. Among those is sulfur. Sulfur is a tasteless, odorless, non-metallic chemical element belonging to the oxygen group. It is used in a number of ways such as ingredients to pesticides and beauty products. An average person contains 140 grams of sulfur, significant for producing essential amino acids to create protein. Sulfur reserves are found in nature mainly in the lithosphere and released by means of weathering. Sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide are excreted to the atmosphere through volcanic eruptions, hot springs, and decaying organic matter in swamps. Meanwhile, marine algae release dimethyl sulfide in the atmosphere. As compound evaporates into the atmosphere and gets in contact with oxygen, it creates sulfur trioxide. If this liquid combines with water or ammonia, it will produce sulfuric acid or sulfate salts that go back to Earth by means of precipitation. Finally, the soil absorbs the sulfate salts, which are taken up by plants. Consequently, animals feeding on those plants will absorb the salts and give it back to Earth when they die and decay in the form of hydrogen sulfide. Over time, these materials will return into fossil fuels which companies exploit through burning of their operations.
Miller and Spulman in 2009 stated that human activities, specifically industrialization, affect the sulfur cycle by releasing large amounts of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere via mining and extraction in three major ways. First, by burning sulfur-containing coal and oil to produce electric power. Second, by refining sulfur-containing petroleum or fossil fuels to make gasoline. Third, by smelting or converting sulfur-containing metallic ores into free metals such as copper, lead, and zinc. How can SO2 affect water quality? Compounds like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide or NO, when mixed with water, oxygen, and other pollutants in the atmosphere, produce acidic components that contribute to acid rain. Acid rain is a form of precipitation with acidic components that render water quality in streams, lakes, and other water forms more acidic. This phenomenon alters the natural composition of water, causing corrosion of water pipes. It will result in leaching of heavy metals such as iron and copper that could possibly blend into the water used in human consumption. In terms of biodiversity, acid rain not only alters the water's composition and quality, but it also largely affects the aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. This type of harmful precipitation could cause death of several aquatic organisms not adapted to acidic conditions and reduced fish population, thereby decreasing biodiversity. Even in the long run, organisms that barely survive acidic conditions are affected in terms of their morphology and physiology. They could become less competitive, which renders their evolutionary fitness vulnerable. Furthermore, acid rain seeps into the ground, dissolving nutrients such as magnesium and calcium needed by trees for their growth and development. Aluminum in particular kills the roots of trees, hindering water absorption. Extreme cases may result in deforestation that will affect the forest ecosystem at large. This is detrimental to flora and fauna dependent on these terrestrial ecosystems, which also leads to decreased biodiversity. While sulfur affects biodiversity and water quality in a negative manner, it could surprisingly aid in preservation of food and pesticides. Sulfur has been used as an ingredient in pesticides since the 1920s. The said substance is proven to be safe for the environment for agricultural purposes given that it is used according to the approved label. In addition, the presence of sulfur in the crop's nutrition may change the grain quality for the better. How can SO2 affect human health? In extremely powerful volcanic eruptions, the ash and aerosols emitted in the eruption can pass through the troposphere and penetrate the stratosphere. If enough of the ash and other pollutants released in the eruption make it into the stratosphere, the global climate will be affected. The most significant climate impacts of volcanic injections into the stratosphere come from the conversion of sulfur dioxide to sulfuric acid, which condenses rapidly in the stratosphere to form fine sulfate aerosols. These fine aerosols penetrate deep into our lungs, causing health problems. At higher levels, these can impair lung function, trigger asthma attacks, and aggravate heart conditions in susceptible populations. National Park Service in 2018 stated that people who are at risk to SO2 include people with lung diseases, children, older adults, and active people. After knowing the negative effects of increasing SO2 in the environment, it is important to know the interventions within our reach to minimize its effects on the environment. Huge corporations involved in industrialization play a significant role in the increasing SO2 in the atmosphere. As students, youth mobilizations such as Youth Strike for Climate PH and Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines or YACAP are the perfect avenues for learning, spreading, and raising awareness on environmental issues. These groups turn individual action to collective action, which is necessary in demanding accountability from companies and encouraging them to switch into more sustainable and environmentally friendly methods to reduce their SO2 emissions. Synthesizing the report, the sulfur cycle describes the circulation of sulfur in different forms throughout Earth's systems. Its natural pathway is greatly altered by human activities, particularly for industrialization. Water becomes more acidic, changing its quality for consumption and as habitats. Flora and fauna in both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems are also negatively affected that may result in decreasing biodiversity. Human health is also at risk of respiratory or cardiovascular illnesses. Despite these negative effects, sulfur contributes positively to food security as long as its usage is maintained at the recommended amount. Youth mobilizations are modes for students to collectively fight huge corporations responsible for increasing sulfur emissions that negatively affect the environment. Again, we are Group 5, and thank you for listening to our report.